Hi everybody, so this is Donnell with Donnell's Stitchery. Today we are going to work on I'm going to work on teaching you how I make my bowl cozies. Instead of you having to watch the entire live stream, which I don't mind, you want to watch the live streams I've done before, previously, have at it. I love it. If you want to watch them both, that's even better. But we are going to make the hanging bowl cozies that I love making. And yes, I'm going to use the same binding and the same fabric. And I just love how they turn out because they're like flower petals. It reminds me of flower petals for a flower. And I put a little hook on it, just like a pot holder set would have. So that way there you can hang it up on the wall for decoration when you're not using it. Or you could have it hanging on a hook inside of your cabinet. So that way there it doesn't take up actual cabinet counter space or shelf space inside of a cabinet for all your other dishes. So I'm going to show you guys how I make that today. So you only need for each bowl cozy roughly between 40 to 45 inches for a 10-inch square. So because I do mine with 10-inch square, two 10-inch square pieces of fabric. And then for mine, because I always tell people mine are not microwave safe since I use fusible fleece, because I like the form that it gives to the bowl. Then plus there's a lot of controversy on whether the cotton batting is microwave safe anyway. So I use fusible fleece on mine. If the person wants me to use cotton batting, I will. Not a big deal. I actually do it both ways. Just fusible fleece is what I have on hand right now. So I do 9.5-inch square of fusible fleece on the back, fused to each one of the 10-inch squares of fabric. So the first thing you do is you want to fold this 10-inch square after you iron this on, or you attach the quilt batting. What you want to do is you want to fold this right in half, and at each end have some strips right here. So each end you want to clip, so that way there it helps keep your corners all straight. And then I just try and flatten mine down. So then I do that with both of mine. Let me go ahead and do it to this one. And I did already fix up my binding of how I do mine. And I will show that in another video. Put that down below me for right now. So down here on the table, I'm going to show you guys how I do this. Make sure you can see really well. Yep. So where did my pencil go? There it is. So I have a 8-inch by 1-inch ruler that I use for my measurements for over here. And then I just have a normal drawing pencil. This in here is an Art Skills drawing pencil. I think we got it at Michael's. I'm not really for sure. Came in a set of 2. So what you do is from this edge of the fabric over here, you measure over 2 inches and up 1 inch. So over here at the end of the 2-inch mark, I just make a little mark. Over here at the 1-inch up mark, the 1x2 mark, I just make a mark. And then what I do is I take my ruler and I connect the 2 dots. And I know my hand is probably in the way. Yep. So what I'm doing is just connecting the 2 dots with a pencil line. And not a big deal if you can see it, because that's going to be the actual sew line anyway. So over 2 inches, up 1 inch, make a mark, make a mark. So I made my mark here, and I made my mark here at 2 inches over and 1 inch up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here with my ruler, put it right along the edge of those marks, so that way I can get my pencil on the mark, and I'm just going to draw my line. And this is going to be my sew line to make my notches. So I'm going to set that aside and do my other one. And yes, this way of doing it instead of the stitch and flip can take a little bit longer because of the whole prepping of the binding, but I just enjoy this a lot. I like the way that this comes out. I like the fact that it's made into a hanging form to where, and to give it more of a purpose than just to use it, but you can use it and have it for a decoration as well when you're not using it, and for easy storage. So I already have mine set for 2.0 stitch length because I use almost everything I do. I use the piecing stitch length 2.0, which yes, it's a tighter stitch, but that's okay. Also means it's going to be harder for it to come loose. And it's just what I prefer. I'll bring my other one over here and do this one. And I just leave the threads connected, do essentially like a chain piecing. And cut them when I'm done. Whenever I'm doing a lot of these, I will just leave them all all chained together by the threads. Now, once I'm done sewing these, I don't cut away the excess. I leave my excess. So that way there it helps give that stitch some extra strength. So all I do now is just open these up. So I got my stitching here and here. So now what I'm going to do is fold it so that way they are facing each other. I just open this up because with my stitching here and here. So my stitching right here and here. See if I can't get this into the camera better for you guys. So I just open this up and then I fold it the opposite direction. So I can do the other two sides. No extra cutting, no buying patterns, none of that stuff. Just quick and easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So now we try and come over here and do the same process as what we just did with the other side of making the notches. Giving us our sew line. And you can do these measurements in any form that you want. This is just the way I like it because I got nice deep bowls for cereal and chili and soup and whatever else. So these are actually perfect for my bowls here. If you have smaller bowls, you can make the square smaller. If you have larger bowls, like the serving bowls or whatnot, casserole dishes, whatever size you want, play with those different sizes. Any size will work. The larger the square of fabric, the larger the bowl size it'll hold. The smaller square the fabric, the smaller size it will hold. And now I'm going to do this stitching. And I use my walking foot all the time, pretty much. Very rarely do I change out my walking foot for a different foot. Okay, so since I have this done now, so I'm going to need, so now for this next step, I'm going to need these 4 clips. I'm going to need to get me 4 more clips. Because now I'm going to be clipping these 2 pieces together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up to where the pretty side is on the inside of the bowl. And then I'm going to open this one up to where the pretty side is on the outside of the bowl. That way there, the fusible fleece will be facing each other now. I'm just going to set them right inside of each other. So the pretty sides are on the outside. And I'm going to clip. Go around first, start with the 4 corners. And I'm going to clip these. I'm going to match up my corners, get them all lined up nice and pretty. And then I'm going to clip them. You can pin if you like. I prefer clips on this. I prefer clips on almost everything I do. Very rarely do I use my pins. If something is being fussy enough, I'll use my pins. So I got the 4 clips on the 4 corners. Now I'm going to clip the centers. So what I do is, since I left the extra piece, the extra notches here, what I do is try and move one to one side, one to the other side. Nest those up to each other. Just like you would connecting 2 seams. And I'm going to do this on all 4 sides. And this helps keep everything nice and lined up, nice and straight, all the way around. A lot less fuss whenever I go to do my binding. Because the way I do my binding is I bind both sides at the same time, the front and the back. I don't sew one side on and then come back and sew the other side or anything like that. I do all of mine all at the same time. I found a technique on someone else's channel of how to do that, and I'll link that down below on this tutorial, so that way there you can try and go watch it. It's a couple that does that, and they have an amazing tutorial on this. So I have a basket right down below me where I keep my binding at whenever I'm done binding. That way there it comes up right up from below me, and it stays nice and even with where I'm working. So when I make my binding, let me move this over here for a second. So with my binding, I do for this here, or for almost everything I do a 2-inch strip of fabric. And this time here, I just cut up all of this fabric that I had, and so that way there I can make my binding. So what I do is I do a 2-inch strip of fabric. I iron it in half, and then I iron the 2 raw edges into the center, and then I fold it in half again and iron it. So essentially, the second time I fold it in half, I'm just redoing that crease from where I had done these 2 here. So now I'm going to give myself a nice straight edge here, because I use my bias binding tool to make my binding. So what I'm going to do, my nice straight edge here that I just made, or relatively straight, is I'm going to get this started right here. And I'm going to move that clip from over here that was holding that corner to this side, so that way there I can hold down my binding. Now when I start sewing, you'll see I'll be able to hit both sides of my binding, because they are both relatively equal. So I just come up like, I don't know, like maybe 1/8 of an inch roundabout, just so I can make sure I hit both sides of that with no problem whatsoever. And if I do miss, then I just go back and redo it. So let me take care of one side, and I will be right back to show you guys. So I just sew down one side and then back stitch at the start and stop of it. I've got a little loose thread here hanging. Let me snip that. So I just go until I get into the middle, and then I raise up my presser foot, but I keep my needle down, and then readjust. So that way there I can do the second half of that same side. When I go sew on this side here, what I do is I sew all the way until I get to the end of the 10-inch square for the bowl cozy, and then I back stitch. So see, I started here, I backstitched, sewed up until I get to this point, which is where I have my finger holding the fabric down at the time. I keep it nice and pressured on here so that way there it doesn't move. Once I get to this point, then I leave the needle down and I move it. So that way there I can readjust and start out and do this half. Once I get down here, I back stitch and then I try and take it out. So that way there I can create my miter corner. So what you do is on the opening of this here, I just put my finger right in the middle, which creates a little bit of an arrow over here, an arrow shape. I push the center of that down right up against the edge of the fabric. And then I push the two sides down. And that would give me my miter corner. It might be slightly off at times, but that is okay to me. It is not that big of a deal. And I use this method on my quilt as well. And you can try and pin it or anything you want in order to make sure you get that nice straight miter corner if you like. Just on my bowl cozies, it does not make that big of a deal to me. Some loose threads here I need to trim up. There we go. So I'm holding down my center, like just past the center. Right there, when I get to the center, I can stop my needle and pivot. Remove my clip from this end. Readjust. Put my foot down and continue to go. And I'll show you on each corner, once again, how I do my miter corner, so that way there, help you learn. Might as well, since I'm sitting right here doing this right in front of you. And any of the long strings, I'll come back and snip in a little bit. So, now we are going to try and take our finger or thumb inside of here. And this portion of my fabric right here, this edge, I'm going to have it come right up against the center where these two pieces meet on the inside. And then, which is going to give me these little flats right here on each side. So I'm just going to fold those down. And if I have it all correctly, it'll give me a beautiful miter corner. If not, then I just readjust it to make it work. It's a little hard to do this whenever I had it away from my body. And sorry if you see me biting my lip at all. It's because I do that when I'm focusing, when I'm really concentrating. You may even catch me doing that on my live streams. All right, so now we'll remove this clip and get to this corner, and then we'll back stitch at this corner. Now I'll show you the miter corner once again, one last time. Alrighty, so this last side here. Oh, let me trim up these threads, these fraying threads. I swear some of these are stubborn as could be. Alrighty, back to business. So we have our final side here that we need to put the binding on. So what we're going to do is put our finger in here, either our finger or thumb, get it that dead center, push down the two sides, and then I think I'm going to clip this one here just to help hold it. So I need to readjust this a little. I'm a nice good miter corner. I do like a good miter corner. It's just sometimes I don't always actually get a dead point on, but it is what it is. So over here on this last side, what I'm doing is I'm going to sew until I get to that one corner where I started off at. And when I get to that, to the edge, I'm going to stop, just like I would at the other edges. But I'm going to leave the needle down. Readjust my fabric a little. So let me move this out of the way. So now what I'm going to do, I'm over here at the edge. I'm over here along this edge here, underneath the needle. So I got to stop right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take this tail here, and I'm going to take my ruler and measure about 5 to 5 1/4. Don't have to be exact. That's just the measurement I like. So 5 inches is right over here. So I just try and take my pencil and I just make a dot. So I know where my 5-inch mark is. And I cut this about 1/4 inch or roundabout. Don't gotta be exact. Right above that. So then I open this up completely. And I'm going to fold this down. Now you can either use some glue or a glue stick, finger press, hold with your fingers, clip it, whatever you want to do to make it stay. To make that stay folded. So I got this folded here, roughly about 1/4 inch, roundabout. So then I just try and redo my folds of the double folded tape or binding or whatever you want to call it. Some people call it binding, some people call it double folded tape. But either way, so that way there, once I get my stitch come all the way down here, I'll have all my raw seams enclosed. And then I'll show you. So, so I stopped right here. I measured 5 inches out, and I cut maybe an eighth to a quarter of an inch beyond that little dot that I made. And then I folded that raw edge tip up here where I folded it, or where I cut it. I folded that. Got a piece of string hanging out. So I cut that, folded it a quarter of an inch, and then I folded everything back up. So that way there, all my raw edges are all nice and enclosed. There's no raw edges to be it's exposed. So now I'm going to take this. So we got this portion here. I'm just going to bring this around. And I'm going to bring this back to the back of the potholder or binding, whatever. Bringing this to the back. And with mine, what I do is I try and, instead of having it come like over here or anything like that, I just have it come down like how like a ribbon does, where it just try and loops up and over and back down. So I try and do that, and I try and, well, see if I can get this in the camera just properly. Have it stopped to where it's like right over here, right before these two meet up at, is where my edge is. And I try to get this as centered as possible. And then I'm just going to come over here and do a seam up here, which is up at the top up here, and then down here. And that will secure my hoop for usage. And then other than that, all you got to do is trim at your threads. So I like to turn this upside down so I can actually see the end of the loop. So push my fabric inward, bring this over here underneath the needle. Might need your help occasionally at first. This one's being fussy today, I see. If it wants to be fussy, I'm just letting it be fussy and everything, and I'm just making a few stitches, making sure the stitches I do make are nice and secure. Because I notice everything just wants to be a little on the fussy side today, and that is completely fine. Everybody has fussy days, including computers, even though they have it more than often. Trim up all my threads. Make sure you go back to trim out your threads on each end if you did not already do so. I normally do mine as I go. I just decided not to today. Before I trim them, I always give them a nice little tug just to make sure. But here is my hanging bowl cozy. All nice and done. And it only took me on here roughly about 30 minutes at that. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put a message in the comment section. And let me know if you like the tutorial, or if you would like me to redo it in some other way for you, or if you'd like to have me show you how to do the stitch and flip method as well. whatever you like. Just let me know in the comments. Let me know if you like it or if you like the fabric I even. Have a good one. Bye.